In the early 19th century, the United States shared North America with its neighbor Mexico. Mexico gained its independence from Spain in 1821. And like the United States of America, the United States of Mexico tried to create a federal republic. Independent states sharing sovereignty with a central government. There were about 6.5 million Mexicans at the time. Now, compared to the population of the United States, that had about 10 million inhabitants at the time. So Mexico stretched from what is today California down into the Central American Isthmus and had a smaller population than the USA, its larger neighbor to the north. In California, though, the population was only 3.2 thousand Spanish, 3,200 Spanish, about 20,000 Indians. Very few Spaniards wanted to live on this frontier. New Mexico had about 30,000 Spanish and 10,000 Pueblo. Farther to the south, even had a smaller Spanish population. Only about 2,000 Spaniards wanted to live in this region called Texas. They called themselves Tejanos, the neighbors. And by 1830, there were about 7,000 Anglo-American immigrants who had moved into Spanish territories, living on the Mexican side of the border. For most Americans then, Mexico was a land of tyranny. Even though in the 1820s, Mexico tried to create a republic based on representative government, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. And so they encouraged settlement from the United States of America. Southerners in particular found Texas inviting. Texas land, Texas climate was suitable for growing cotton. Cotton meant slaves. And so Texas was a land open up to cotton plantation growing. One of the men who took advantage of this was Stephen F. Austin. He received a land grant from the Mexican government, allowing him to bring 300 families from the United States of America in 1821. This was free, legal immigration. But Mexico began to change. In 1829, the Mexican Republic outlawed slavery. They told Stephen F. Austin, they told Anglo families that slavery was no longer going to be possible in a free republic. Freedom meant freedom from slavery. Stephen F. Austin and his followers didn't agree. They believed that freedom meant the ability to own slaves. Mexico also transformed into a centralized state. The liberal republic that had invited Anglo-Americans in transformed itself into a dictatorship under the General Santa Anna. And Santa Anna was not going to tolerate any dissent. Santa Anna saw the Anglo population in Texas as a growing threat to government from Mexico City. And so Santa Anna outlawed new immigration in 1830, told immigrants from the United States of America that they were no longer welcome in Mexico. Stay on your side of the border. This became a border security issue because Anglo-Americans from the United States of America did not listen to their Mexican neighbors. They continued to flood across the border until by 1835 there were 30,000 Americans demanding their freedom in Texas. They were not happy to live under Mexican rule. They wanted a free and independent Texas state in which they could own their slaves and continued to grow and prosper as they saw fit without the direction or guidance of Mexico City, and in particular, the domination of the dictator Santa Anna. In 1836, the Anglo population of Texas got together and wrote a Declaration of Causes. Most of the men who signed this document were illegal immigrants from the United States of America. And so they promoted a free and independent Texas. Santa Anna marched on them to put down this rebellion. One of the heroic stands was at the Alamo. The Battle of the Alamo became integral to Texas's story of independence. 187 defenders stood up against an overwhelming force of 1,500 Mexicans. The siege ended with every one of the defenders dead, according to legend. This produced the famous phrase, "Remember the Alamo." These 187 died for their independence and their freedom. The tables got turned on the Mexicans at the Battle of San Jacinto. Sam Houston launched a surprise attack and captured Santa Anna, took him prisoner in April of 1836. Santa Anna then was forced to accept Texas independence and a border at the Rio Grande River. Even though Santa Anna accepted this, though, the Mexican legislature in Mexico City rejected it. This produced a long-standing dispute from the Texas Lone Star Republic and later the United States of America because Mexico did not recognize Texas as an independent state. Texas was simply in a state of rebellion and that Mexico still owned Texas. But here is another example of Euro-American settlers moving from the East Coast, moving out west, taking land that was already occupied, owned by others, and then claiming their right to a free and independent state. Didn't take into account the people that were already there. The Texas independence movement forced Mexico to surrender or cede territory for the development of a Lone Star Republic. This was simply another step towards manifest destiny.